All right, welcome. My name is Lucy Ferguson. I'm the Youth and Teen Services Librarian at the Summit Pierce County Library. I use she, her pronouns. And we're here today with Teen Volunteer League. Teen Volunteer League is a mentorship and leadership development program for Pierce County teens ages 14 to 18. In the past, this program has been held at all 20 of our library locations, but due to the pandemic, the program is now online. Youth meet virtually over Zoom and Discord for 10 weeks over the summer. Over the course of the program, youth engage in project-based and creative work relating to libraries, community, and reading. They receive training and support for job skills and connect on issues of importance to them and their futures. TVL's big project this summer is called Career Interviews. TVL members are interviewing workers in Pierce County about what they do and how they got to be where they are. TVL members told us who they wanted to hear from, and we reached out. Today, we're interviewing Matthew Trenda, who is the Lands Data and Outreach Specialist for the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. I'll let our teens introduce themselves and take over.
Hi, I'm Aisha Narayan. My pronouns are she, they.
Hello, hello, I am Liam, and I go by he, him.
All right, and Kendra, if you want to introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry, my internet was going in and out. Okay. I'm Kendra, and my pronouns are she, her.
Great, and we'll go ahead and get started with our questions.
Hi, Matthew. So our first question we have for you today is, how did you get into the position you're currently in?
Yeah, and that's a fun one because it's kind of a mix of accident and plan. So when I moved to Olympia 7 years ago and needed a position, needed a job, basically. I was kind of coming in unemployed. And so looked and a position for the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife was up. It was a communications consultant position, communications consultant 1, so kind of an entry-level communications position in the wildlife program of the department. I applied for that, and fortunately I was hired, and I worked in that position for a couple years before this position opened up. And I knew I wanted to be in our lands division because public lands mean a lot to me, and I really like the mission of the lands division. And so what was great about this position too is that it kind of combined my two areas of things I care about. So English and communication and writing, along with that passion for environmentalism and conservation. And so massively good fit for me. And luckily I was able to apply and get this position. And that's the short of it. I don't know, maybe I could have gone into more detail on the education part on there, but is there anything else you'd like to know on how I got in here?
No, I think that's good. Kendra, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, so the next question kind of goes over what you kind of talked about, but how did you decide to go into fish and wildlife over working in like a national or state park or different branch?
Yeah, that's a really cool question too, because our missions are very similar. You have the Department of Natural Resources, you have state parks or national parks, and then you have us, Department of Fish and Wildlife. And we're all kind of sister agencies, and we all work together for natural resources in the state. But the thing about somewhere like state parks is they're very focused on the recreation side. And so a state park, you go in, it has a lot of facilities there for people who are there to recreate and people who are there to experience the outdoors in a certain way, right? Whereas the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and what I love about our department is that we have a recreation section kind of, but our focus is preserving and protecting wildlife species and their habitats. And that's where my area of focus is very, oriented. And so I like our mission for that reason. And so that's what kind of has driven me to be with the Department of Fish and Wildlife and also then stay here for as long as I have.
That makes sense. Liam, do you want to ask your question?
Neat. All right. So do you work at a desk or do you work like out in the field on sites?
It is about 80% desk job at this point. I'm hoping, I mean, most of that was driven by the pandemic, I'll be honest, but I'm hoping as we start to open up a little more, half of my job is outreach. And so that consists of going to outreach events and setting up partnerships with different organizations and going to work at different locations to promote public lands and to reach people who we might not be reaching if I'm stuck at a desk, right? So in an ideal world, it's 50-50, but right now it's about 80-20 desk side to outdoors.
That's understandable. It's probably so difficult as of like right now. Our next question is, what is something that you're currently working on advocating for?
A big focus of we just did our kind of plans for the year for workloads, and the big focus for this year is trying to eliminate barriers that are preventing people from getting out on public lands, right? So for example, if someone doesn't have a car, that barrier is transportation to get out to public lands and enjoy them. So what can we do to make it more accessible for people to get out on public lands and recreate? That's one example, but those are the kind of things I'm looking at, and that's a main focus for the year. And I'm hoping to be successful there as an agency. It can move really slow when you're working for a government agency, but at least the work's being done, and I'm hopeful that we can make some progress there on eliminating that.
So our next question is, how do you spread awareness to the community?
Right now, it's very digital. A lot of my communication work and outreach work is creating things like a story map to promote a certain wildlife area that we manage, or online communications around certain endangered species that we're working to bring back or revitalize. Again, in an ideal non-pandemic world, some of that awareness is going to be spread in person and working with partnership agencies and partnership nonprofits to reach different audiences and tell them about our mission and how they can help with that mission too.
All right. So what kinds of public lands do you work to advertise, and like how do you advertise to the community?
The type of public lands, I kind of mentioned before, like state parks might have, you go to a park, you expect certain facilities to be there. With Department of Fish and Wildlife lands, we kind of keep our lands more wild. So we try to preserve that natural historic landscape that was there thousands of years ago, because we want our wildlife to thrive. And so you're not going to see as much like park benches or picnic areas or even toilets. It's going to be very, very primitive. And that's how we try to keep it to the benefit of the wildlife. So those are the kind of public lands I'm working with. And a lot of people like that. They'll go out and they'll camp. They want a more primitive experience, right? You don't want that kind of facility there. But you can get that at parks or elsewhere. But with us, we try to keep it natural as possible. And then how we advertise that to the community, again, right now it's mostly digital. But we do, I am working towards holding some events on our different wildlife areas and perhaps different, hiking events. Maybe you can hike with a biologist, ask some questions about the wildlife in the area while you're out on a hike. That's kind of fun. I'm hoping to promote that more as we get out of the pandemic and are able to do more things.
That was a great answer. Thank you so much. Our last question for you today is, what keeps you in Washington?
So many things keep me in Washington. I was born here. I actually grew up in the Portland, Vancouver area, so down in Clark County, and moved up to Olympia a few years back. But you can get pretty much every habitat type that matters in Washington state. You get cool riparian areas, you get cool shrub steppe and desert areas on the east side, you get mountain ranges, you get beach and ocean settings, and it's just, you're all within a few hours drive within all of that. And that gives us a cool variety of wildlife species that we want to preserve and protect. And that gives us a really, really good variety of different recreational activities you can do in the state too. So you can always be busy with a new thing, no matter what. And you get to see lots of really, really cool wildlife and habitats and really good opportunities to get outdoors. And a lot of our state is public land, which means you have access to a lot of these different places pretty easily if you can get out there. And then of course my family lives here too, so I like being around them, I guess. So
That's a very understandable answer because I love Washington. But I'll let Lucy pack up our interview.
Yeah, thank you for being here today, Matthew, and thank you, Aisha, Kendra, and Liam for asking our questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.